You're watching Weekend at Gabe's and I'm Weekend Gabe. This latest episode was brought to you by the good folks over at the Ghetto Flower. Use our code W at G for an exclusive 15% discount when visiting their site. Tell them I sent you. Now enjoy the show. All right, let's get to our first guest tonight. He is straight ATL. He has the new record out now, The Price of Admission. He's been recording professionally for a decade independently. Has gone from being a student of the game to tilting on the music industry. Nolan had his music featured on prominent TV shows and movies like Kevin Hart's 2020 Netflix special, and also the founder of the Fresh and Local ATL initiative. Let's use J Nolan to the show. How are you?
I'm great. How you guys doing?
Man, thank you so much. Man, Jay, you know me.
Absolutely.
We've been tracking each other for about 11, 12 years now.
Yep.
I sent you a message just how absolutely proud I am of your success over that time period when so many
Thank you.
people tried this and packed it in. After 5 years, you are still going strong, man. Let's talk about this new record, man, Price of Admission.
Okay.
It kind of coincides nicely with what I had about you being a student of the game, and you talk rap on Legal Hustle. I'm the artist, the writer, and the publisher. You got your hands dipped in all types of things.
Yes, sir.
Talk about like why that's what now in your career that you've experienced the game. Now it's time to share the game.
I think it's important because it's just information that's easy to digest, but it's just a lack of people giving it out, right? I think there's so many conversations about masters and publishing. You see like big artists that talk about it in their interviews, but nobody really understands what any of that entails. Even the artists that are creating music themselves. So I know when I started getting like TV placements and stuff like that, I started getting a lot of questions from my peers about like, how am I doing this? So it just kind of set off a light bulb in my head. Like there's a lot of people that need this information and it shouldn't be gated behind like huge price lines in order to get to it.
Yeah,
Hell
absolutely.
yeah! And you released the book to that effect. I believe 2020,
Yes.
which is still available on your website.
Yep. The pen game
What
portfolio.
what can people expect to find in there as far as guidance?
Okay, so the Pen Game Portfolio basically just outlines a lot of the different ways that artists can monetize their music. All of the different places you could be like registering your songs to receive royalties, whether that be your ASCAPs, BMIs, your traditional PROs. You have like Sound Exchange, which is going to collect your digital performance royalties from like internet radio and stuff like that. So if you get plays on some of these smaller radio stations, you can actually reap benefits from that. Then you have like your Song Trust that's going to get some of those mechanical license royalties, also along with additional performance royalties that your traditional PRO is not going to get. And it's just basically giving people the outline on like how all of this works, all of the different broadcasts that pay to each organization. And of course, it also goes into my experience in creating music for TV and film and like how I got into it, why it's important for me to be sharing it. And then there's also a story in there in the first version of the book, because there is a volume 2 now also. But in the first version of the book, it also outlines how I started creating music for other artists that wanted to be rappers or artists, and they writing was not their strong point. So I started offering my services in that field, and then it also snowballed into me creating custom music for like game streamers, YouTube channels, small businesses, podcasts, etc. So just giving people all of the different ways that you can be monetizing on your craft. I think a lot of times artists pigeonhole themselves into this idea of a music career that's compared to the Jay-Z's, the Beyoncé's, the Drakes, but that's a very small company, you know? So for the average working musician, there are other alternatives to where you don't necessarily have to struggle forever, but it does take a different level of dedication and work ethic in order to achieve it.
And quick follow up there: are you the Sync King? Is that it? Is that
Nah, definitely not. No. I would not accept that title, just mainly because people try to like throw nicknames like that at me, and it's flattering, it's cool. But to be honest, the further I get into sync, it just shows me how much catch up I really have to do, because there's people that literally do it every day. Like I didn't know I got nominated for my first sync award last year, and I didn't even know they had awards, you know. So it was like, okay, there's a lot more to this.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Well, I was going to ask. That's a great segue about you working with, and then also creating records for companies that are looking for a specific tone or theme. How does that complicate your writing process from write for yourself, or is it kind of almost fun to challenge yourself and create something that they're looking for?
Oh man, you hit the nail right on the head. It's fun. It stretches your creativity. Like if you're really an artist, like having a challenge in front of you should always motivate you. So I think it's made me a much better and more dynamic songwriter than anything, because now when you're faced with writing music that's going to be used in scenes and you don't even know where it's necessarily going to end up, a lot of the times there's situations where they may give you an idea and you have to build on it, but a lot of times you're making general songs that could end up anywhere. And then of course, writing for other artists, you basically got to take their idea and enhance their creative idea, which may not align with anything that I care about, but I'm servicing them in that moment, and I got to bring their vision to the light in the best way possible. So it's not about me; it's about stretching myself to whatever that plateau might be. So it's super fun for me, and like I said, it's made me so much better. It made me write songs about all types of stuff, man. I would. It's a crazy line of stuff that I've made.
I was gonna ask a follow up there. So, I mean, we have a lot of artists on here and talking about songwriting, and especially like songwriting in which you're bearing your soul and your feelings, your emotions. Is it hard to kind of like let your babies go to a random Love Island scene? Like, you know, is that something that you have to just like unlearn for yourself?
Not really. I'm always excited to hear my music on a TV show, to be honest. Like, you know, as an independent artist, there is a limited amount of resources to get your music in front of like mass amounts of people at once. So I always revel at the opportunity, for real.
What was your first big break seeing your music featured film or video game? What was the big break? And then also what doors did that open for you?
So my first placement actually was with UFC. This was in 2012 going into 2013. They had this pay-per-view match, and basically they used my music as the backdrop for one of the fighters. He was basically telling his story and why that particular match was important to him. And you know, at the time when it happened, I didn't think much of it. I was actually waiting on a payment for it, so I didn't have much invested into it because this is my first one. I'm like, I'm really just waiting on the money. But after it aired on TV, and you know, maybe like 6 to 8 months passed by, I actually got to see what a royalty check really looked like. You know what I mean? And from that particular fight, it educated me a lot, because UFC go, or at least at that time, I don't know if they still do it the same way now, but it was like pay-per-view first, then it went to like Fox Sports Network, and then it went to Fox, the regular Fox, you know what I mean? So as it went through all of these different subsidiaries, you get paid off of all of that. So me and that producer actually ate off of that particular placement for like 3 or 4 years down the line, because it just kept airing all over the place. Because you got to think Fox has international markets as well. So it was like the gift that kept on giving, and it just made me want to get more involved. So it definitely opened up more doors, and it just made me have a broader perspective of what music really is and can be.
Let's wind the clocks back. Well, let's not wind the clocks back. Let's talk about the real stuff that's happening right now. Price of Admission is out on all platforms. You've been working with DJ Red Handed. Let's start there.
Okay.
How did y'all link up? You said you've been working with different producers on placements, and obviously the width is very large. But why DJ Red Handed for your own project?
Okay.
Dropping on ESP.
DJ Red Handed, I mean, for one, he's a friend of mine. You know, I've known him for many years. He's a legit DJ. He's DJ shows for me. We've done all type of stuff together. But up to 2019, we had never worked on any music together. So out here in Atlanta, there was this event series called Controllerize. And it was an event series that gave upcoming producers and DJs an opportunity to like showcase their skills. They were making like live beat sets on the spot, kind of like some boiler room type of thing, you know what I mean? But it was here in Atlanta, and he was getting a lot of traction on the Controllerize scene, and I didn't know he was as good at making beats as he was. So he was like, "Yeah, man, let's link up." So I went to his studio. We made like out of the 9 songs that's on the project, I think we made 3 or 4 that first session. So it was just like natural, like, all right, let's keep doing this, man, because we caught a nice little vibe off this one session. And throughout the course of like 2020, 2021, we kept having like sporadic sessions, you know, just trying to be safe. So we weren't spending a lot of time together, but it was just like, you know, if I could get a couple hours here or there, we would link up, and it was just a real organic process. And for me, it was a nice break getting away from the more corporatized side of music, you know, because it's like samples and all type of stuff to where I probably could get sued. but but I'm like, man, I haven't made like a legit hip hop project in years, you know. So that's just something I wanted to do.
Right.
And I know I have supporters and fans that's what they knew me for prior to what I've been doing for the last couple of years.
So why? Oh, go ahead, Gabe. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. Follow up, Sam. It's fine.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, why now? Like, as far as a solo project, you know, like you said, you know, it gets distributed and then cycle through everything. That could be your main goal. So why come back to it?
I'm an artist at heart at all times, man. Like, you gotta have your, you know, I started having to like break things up into like, what are my passion projects and what are my for-profit projects, you know, because I still have to be myself. I have to be an individual and be happy with something that I do. You know, I mean, not to say I'm not happy with the other work, you know, but it just doesn't serve me from a holistic point of view. That's just a financial thing, and it's fun, it's creative, but I want to express myself in whatever way I feel like sometimes. Like, maybe certain things that I say in certain songs wouldn't align with my corporate partners, that if a song gets placed on Apple or something like that, you know what I mean? So
Sure,
you got to have that duality. So that it was just like I said, a passion project for real. But of course, I want people to enjoy it the same way that I do.
Yeah. I think it's time to rewind the clocks back years when you started this, got into this. You know, you were like in high school, really starting to perfect, you know, your passion. And this is something you talked about, is that like with each record, you always hear that passion and that hunger on these songs, so you know, authentic. But talk about like during that journey, and like you said, like, you know, you came through the blog and the mixtape era, trying to break through and to come out on this other side where you're doing deals with corporate. Like, how do you summarize or reflect on all that work and what the journey has meant to you personally?
Man, beautiful struggle, I guess you could say, because it was a lot of struggle, but it was fun. You know, I've formed a lot of bonds with people that I still have to this day, and at this point, it's just really cool to kind of be able to circle back to some of those relationships that I had before, and like show people that there's another way, you know what I mean, to where we can collaborate, or I could just give you information that'll help you get ahead, because that's ultimately what it's about. Like, I don't want to just be somebody that found success in my lane, and then everybody that I knew in the past is just like retiring from music and hanging it up, and you know, it's not as joyous, you know what I mean, to go on stage and then it's like, man, I used to perform with so many talented people and none of them are even around anymore. Like, so, but going back to that 10 to 12 years ago, I look back on that like, man, I really was just rapping. Like, that's all I knew how to do. Like, seriously.
You said in another interview that you sort of went through an obsession phase in high school. What does, I think, you know, anybody who's listened to hip hop like that and thought to themselves, maybe I'll pick up a mic, understands. But for those of us who haven't, what does that look like?
Oh man, my obsession phase was nothing short of excessive. So like I used to my life literally was like go to school, write raps in school, rap in school in between classes. After school, man, I would miss the bus going home, just rapping with my friends because we had like this little crew of we would do ciphers and battles, rapping in the rain. Like it was just ridiculous. Like, and then get back home, do homework, write more raps, listen to Eminem and Method Man and all of these different people, studying all of their techniques, trying to incorporate it into my own thing so that when I go back to school, I could show up with like a new rhyme with a new pattern or something like, oh, where did you get that from? Dang, I didn't know you could do that. So just like really nerd stuff, like, but you know, rap nerd stuff, man. But then
Right.
beyond that, um, I think I'm the last era, or from the last era, I should say, of people that had like tape recorders and, you know, bought CDs and was burning them. So I just had like this endless catalog of music that I was just constantly uh consuming. And it always was giving me more material to be like, okay, one day I'm gonna get as good as this. That was always the benchmark. I mean, one of Chicago's own is my favorite of all time, Lupe Fiasco. So he was like one of those.
Mm.
He was a benchmark for me. Still is, to be honest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just the
He never fell off. He still got it.
yeah,
He still got
exactly.
it
And,
just
and
like
and
that.
it's like, and it's stuff that he did in 06 to 08 that still hasn't been matched today. So it's just like this guy here is the benchmark. So I was always trying to get there, or at least have some glimpse of like people always kind of compared me to him. I didn't always have these glasses, by the way, but like just so people don't think I tried to look like him or anything. But like it was always like, man, I gotta get good like that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. You a shout out Atlanta interview about 2 years ago about the sacrifices you've had to make for your career. I thought this was kind of funny because you said you used 3 in New York to perform at Hot 97 with Loaded Lux.
Yes, I sacrificed
Like
things. Yep.
what? Well, what is that about making those sacrifices? If there's a young artist or someone listening to this who's juggling a day job and also trying to get their foot and their music career going, talk about something like those sacrifices that you've had to make to move that part of your career and the things that you had to give up to get there.
Oh man, that's one of the hardest parts because you know at that time when I was making that decision, it was a tough decision to make because, like you said, it was 3 weeks of PTO, and it was a weird policy, man. Like if you don't work this day, you sacrifice all 3 weeks. I'm like, word, but
That math doesn't math.
yeah,
I was
but
like I said, like it takes 3 weeks to go to New York.
nah, that's not how it went. It was like they had this policy where you had to work the last day of the break and you had to work the first day back from the break because the job, either way it went, it was 3 weeks off. But um, if you didn't work those days, you sacrificed your pay for that time off. So the uh the flight to New York and everything, it was scheduled for that day, and I was basically faced with the option of either you go film for Hot 97 to do this competition, or you just go back to work and never know if that could have helped you get further along in your career. So I had to make that sacrifice, you know. Um, at the time, yeah, I would have loved that 3 weeks of pay, but I made that money back in other ways, like pretty fairly quickly, actually. You know what I mean? So it's funny how things work out. But you gotta believe in yourself in the meantime. That's the tough part, you know, because there were so many different occasions that I had let pass by in the past where I was like, I can't miss work. I can't miss work. And then you look up and it's like, man, I feel like I'm in the same place. But maybe if I would have took some of those chances, I would be further along. So I had to take that one. I mean, Hot 97 and Loaded Lux, all of the people that were involved in it, was like, man, you're
Right.
crazy if you don't do that.
Right.
Before we get into some fun questions here, one of the bars that stood out to me on Price of Admission,
Okay.
you say, pandemic showed me I could get it off the muscle. What does that mean?
Oh man. So 2020, 2021, man, like that was like the height of my whole songwriting business. I don't know if it was the stimulus checks people had, but they were just like grabbing tracks from me left and right.
They needed TV entertainment and they needed music now.
Yeah, exactly. So like, and it just showed me like it's a lot of different things that happened. There were so many like musician relief funds that I'm so grateful I was able to like get help from. And it was just like, wow, so I actually can be a full-time artist now, you know, because the whole thing is I had set this plan where I was like, okay, because I had got furloughed from my job, you know, but there was no like return date in sight. Matter of fact, I'm probably still on paper with them now, but they never told me like when I was gonna come back. They never told me I was terminated or anything. But my whole plan was like, when this is over with, I'm not going back. So, and it just happened to work out that way, where I started getting an influx of business of people that wanted tracks, and then some of my biggest placements came throughout 2020. You know, stuff that Kevin Hart placement was like a huge one to cap off the year. But earlier that year, I had 2 placements on Little Fires Everywhere, which was another big show that people were very locked in with. So pandemic showed me I could get off the muscle. Like I don't necessarily have to keep this job, because man, I used to work for Lockheed. So at Lockheed, I was getting up at like 4 a.m. to report to work. I'm like, yo, this is not the move. Like I don't go to sleep till like 1. Like I can't do that. So so being away from that and really being able to just like tap into my full creativity and be able to do this full time, and then now be in a position where I can help others get on that same pathway, like it's just been a very rewarding process.
Hell
yeah. We're gonna get into some
Gabe,
fun questions. Yeah. I do got one. I thought about this while we were talking during I didn't have a fun one, but this is a fun one. All right. So we have this thing here in Chicago called Crib, and it's not something I developed. But Sam seems to think that I hate people, but it's called "Are You From the Crib?" So we have this thing where these are people who've not necessarily were born in Chicago, but came and staked their career in Chicago, and we decide whether or not they're from the crib. Them, right? So
okay,
there was this news bit recently that Ludacris is from Chicago. Everyone knows that he does have roots in Oak Park, and he was born. But yeah, there you go.
You said my hometown. I had to, one time.
So, but we also know that his life and his career are staked in Atlanta. So people who are saying, "Oh, Luda's from the crib," because there was this visual there of all the best Chicago rappers was in there, which in itself,
I think I saw that. Yeah,
it was absurd. So, being that you were born in Connecticut, do you rap Connecticut, or does you?
Hey, now New Haven, Connecticut, as a person who has spent some time there, is no joke. That is reputable for sure.
Absolutely. I didn't spend enough time there to fully rep it. Like I got family out there. Connecticut is definitely a part of my story, but I couldn't really tell you a lot about the day-to-day life out there, just to be honest. My parents moved me out of Connecticut when I was like 3 years old. So I guess I'm kind of in that Ludacris category.
You are not in the crib. Got it.
Yeah, but I love Connecticut though, but that's not my story.
All right, one quick fun one before I get into this next one. It seems like you're everywhere, man. I'm listening to the music as I'm doing the research, and I'm like, God damn, this sounds familiar. And then I found out that you was on the 2K soundtrack, and I was like,
yes,
that makes a lot of sense. But is there something that you would really love to get, like a sync placement? And I know that's not necessarily how it works. Like, you can't just be like, yeah, I want to be on Love and Hip Hop, and then but is there one that you would be really proud of?
Honestly, 2K was that one for me for like the last 2 years. I've been trying to get on there, so to finally get on there this year was like amazing to me. So I think I gotta make a new list, but I still would love to get on like a NBA playoff campaign or something like that.
Yeah,
because like the way they played Drake What's Next a couple years ago, it was like disrespectful. I'm like, I'm like, man, I wish I had a song era like that. Good gracious.
Big facts.
It was disrespectful.
Yeah, and several of those like post Linkin Park Being Good songs that were in the NBA playoffs like a few years ago. Yeah, that was a long time ago. Okay, last one before we get out of here. The album is called Price of Admission.
Yes.
You are somebody who knows more about the rap game than most people. What would you define as the rap game's price of admission? Now, I want you to think about this in two ways. One, you can give me a figure. You can give me a number. It's your life. Like, or $2 million or whatever it is. And then one abstract thing. Blood, sweat, and tears. So two answers here.
Okay, so I think the concept of the project falls into this. So the price of admission is hard work, dedication, and making smart moves. Because it's not really a monetary thing to get into hip hop or to find success. I didn't invest a lot of money to be where I am. Like this mic here that I'm talking into is the same one that I record on, and it's costing me like $100. So it's really about being resourceful. But if you do want to break it down into like a figure of some sort, I think a rap career could get started off like $1,500 to $2,000 pretty easily, just to get started. Now, of course, you're going to invest into yourself further from there. But if I just had to tell somebody like what they can do to like get started, you could get started with like $2,000.
Word.
There you go.
That's a great answer. Low key.
Listen, these dad raps about to blast off, man. The new,
Please do not give Weekend Gabe any tips for sync placements. We don't need his dad raps in other places.
Listen,
man, dad raps, that could be marketable.
Listen,
very.
Look, I have Jay write the raps, he'll coach me through it, and then age 42, drop the mixtape. Bam.
Hey, man, Griselda has given you hope. I'll tell you that much.
Listen, Beats, do all the
don't give him
do
hope.
all the videos.
I'm like, I'm Hawkeye from Endgame. Don't give him hope, please.
Shoot all the videos.
Mike Eagle, all those folks.
Shoot all the videos in black and white. That's it.
Yeah.
It's game over. All right.
Throw some fangs in your mouth. You're good to go.
Exactly. Price of Admission is the new album from our guest tonight, J Nolan. Give him a follow on these socials. Thank you so much for giving us your time, man. This was fantastic.
Absolutely.
It's so good to finally. It's been a few years since we got at it, so I'm glad to see you doing well and being successful.
Likewise.
So I love it. All right, J Nolan, enjoy the rest of your evening.
All right, y'all too, man. Thank you. Much respect.
All right, J Nolan here on Weekend at Gabe's, man. Listen, people who are smart, intelligent, utilizing their skill, putting it to work, putting the money to work, man. And it's a beautiful thing, man. And he worked for Lockheed. You can't be dumb working for Lockheed Martin. That's the Defense Department.
You're definitely cool. Yeah, definitely. I hear you.
Thank you for watching the latest episode of Weekend at Gabe's on YouTube, brought to you by the Ghetto Flower. Make sure to also click on the links in the description for more information to our guests and access to exclusive new music from the Ghetto Flower and so much more. Make sure to also like and subscribe to the show, and also continue to share, support, and show love by clicking on any of the links surrounding my head. Thanks for watching.